In the early 21st century, we owe many of our ideas about memory and its apparent loss to...
From the consulting room of his flat in Vienna, Freud formulated ideas that would lead to a significant shift in thinking about the human mind. In the unconscious, memories of the past lie buried, not so much forgotten as suppressed.
Buried is an apt word here, because Freud also had a lifelong passion for archaeology. And that same consulting room was full of images and antiquities from ancient Greece, Rome, and Egypt.
Patients like the poet H.D. reclined on the famous couch beneath a photogravure depicting the temple of Ramses II at Abu Simbel by moonlight.
The temple of Ramses II stands as a silent witness to history, much like the silent observer in the analyst's chair.
On Freud's desk stood almost 36 statuettes from ancient cultures, most of which were cast bronze. Among them was the baboon of Thoth, god of wisdom, writing, and record-keeping. For a book on Egypt in Assyria called Lost Civilizations, the life and work of Sigmund Freud may seem like a surprising place to start.
Freud's ideas, however, invite us to question how memories are lost, not only in individual humans, but in human society at large.
Many academics, philosophers, and writers throughout the 20th century have explored the idea of a cultural memory.
In the United States, for instance, cultural memory could be said to include national celebrations such as Thanksgiving. The canon of American literature, art and architecture, and music forms another pillar of this memory.
And the horrific experience, few and long legacy plume of slavery.
None of these three is a straightforward memory, given the time that has elapsed and the shared, social way in which cultural memory is held. Although many Americans assume that it can be traced back to 17th century colonists in New England.
As for a canon of the arts, what belongs in or out of any canon is a source of sometimes heated debate.
And slavery is pointedly not remembered by American institutions.
Until the opening of the National Museum of African American Art and Culture in 2016, there was no museum, no memorial.
No official recognition at state or national level of the millions who died or endured lives of crippling degradation due to slavery.
Nor any open acknowledgement of the ongoing impact its slave-owning past has on American society today.
Buried memories may be suppressing a traumatic event, like slavery, glossing over a history of European colonial incursion.
Or simply ignoring works that do not easily fit the dominant cultural narrative.
When some trigger, white police shooting unarmed black men, for instance, NEMS touches on a painful memory like pressure on a bruise.
The trauma reasserts itself in another guise.
If some cultural memories appear to bury difficult histories, what about the shared histories and memories that we seem to celebrate, even revel in?
In mainstream Western culture, ancient Egypt often takes this positive role, playing the part of a long-lost civilization.
That we, the West, problematic as this simplified term is, have incorporated into our own history and identity.
We discovered it, as dozens of books, television shows, and museum displays like to put it.
And we actively remember it, in ways that range from the patriotic to the bombastic. Is the casino a bit of harmless fun? And is the obelisk merely part of the noble cause of Western science?
As this book will show, things are never quite so simple when we try to remember a lost civilization.
Although he used ancient Greek mythology to characterize his theories.
And never visited archaeological sites farther from Vienna than Athens and Rome.
It was Egypt that occupied his thoughts in later life.
Face to face with the gods.
To Freud, the psychoanalyst was a specialized kind of archaeologist, clearing away the debris. He often compared the human mind to the eternal city of Rome, where ancient ruins coexist with modern buildings, layer upon layer. In the mental city, nothing is ever truly destroyed. It is merely built over.
This preservation was mirrored in the physical space Freud created for himself, a sanctuary populated by the dead.
As patients spoke of their traumas, these ancient figures stood guard, a silent audience of gods and spirits.
An elderly Caucasian woman gazed at the photograver of Abu Simbel, finding in it a connection to her own submerged memories. For Freud and his patients, Egypt was not just a place on a map, but a landscape of the unconscious mind. And presiding over this landscape was Thoth, the scribe of the gods, whose baboon form Freud cherished above all.
But if the individual mind is an archaeological site, so too is the collective memory of a nation.
Freud's insights help us understand how societies, like individuals, bury their shame and trauma.
He spoke of triggers touching a painful memory, like pressure on a bruise.
In modern America, these triggers are often moments of state violence that echo centuries of oppression.
The trauma reasserts itself, rising from the unconscious to demand recognition. We see this in the way history is often glossed over, smoothing out the rough edges of colonial incursion, or ignoring works that do not easily fit the dominant cultural narrative, creating a sanitized version of the past.
Yet, anxiety concentrates around these lost memories. They are never truly gone. We cling to myths like Thanksgiving to avoid the anxiety of the reality. A holiday born in the blood of the Civil War, repurposed as a peaceful origin story. For over a century, the millions enslaved had no monument, no physical space in the national memory.
The crippling degradation they endured was left unspoken by state and national institutions.
It was only in 2016 that the silence was broken with the opening of the National Museum of African American History and Culture.
An open acknowledgement, finally, of the foundation upon which the nation was built.
Looking through Freud's lens, we see that this museum is a form of collective therapy, bringing the repressed to the surface.
But if slavery is the trauma we bury, ancient Egypt is the memory we fetishize.
Egypt takes a positive role, a lost civilization that the West claims to have found and adopted.
We say, we discovered it, a phrase that erases the people who were already there.
The West incorporated Egypt into its own identity, from architecture to occultism.
We remember it in ways that range from the patriotic to the bombastic.
In Paris, the obelisk at the Place de la Concorde stands as a prime example of this patriotic appropriation.
It stands precisely where the guillotine once stood, a frantic attempt to overwrite a bloody memory with an ancient one.
Is the casino just harmless fun? Or does it trivialize a culture for entertainment?
When we speak of the West, we use a simplified term for a complex web of appropriation.
Things are never quite so simple when we try to remember a lost civilization.
He used Greek mythology to name his complexes, but it was Egypt that filled his visual field.
As Carter broke the seal on Tutankhamun's tomb, Freud was breaking the seals on the unconscious.
Freud's work forces us to ask, what does it mean for a civilization, or a memory, to be lost?
Is it lost because it is forgotten? Or is it hidden because we are afraid to find it?
To understand how we hide behind history, Let us step through the door to the Place de la Concorde in Paris.
Here, the guillotine once stood, a machine that defined the reign of terror and severed the head of a king.
To heal the scars of a divided nation, France looked not inward, but outward, to the neutral, ancient majesty of Egypt.
The obelisk dominates the square, a piece of a lost civilization transplanted to silence a modern trauma.
It is a trophy of colonial reach, a symbol that the West has inherited the power of the pharaohs. The base of the monument tells the story not of Ramesses, but of the French engineers who moved it. Is the obelisk merely part of the noble cause of Western science, saving the past for humanity's common good?
But the appropriation of memory shifts from the patriotic to the purely bombastic as we cross the ocean to America.
Here, the pyramid-shaped Luxor Hotel and Casino stands as a cathedral to consumerism.
A simulacrum of history, where the Great Sphinx is reimagined in bright paint and plaster.
Inside, the sacred geography of the afterlife is transformed into a lobby for gambling and dining. Is the casino a bit of harmless fun? Or does it reveal a deeper emptiness in our cultural memory? We revel in the aesthetic of the lost civilization, while ignoring the reality of the people who built it.
We discovered it, as books and television shows like to put it, turning history into a narrative of Western adventure.
We have digested ancient Egypt, breaking it down until it fits comfortably into our hotels and city squares. As this book will show, things are never quite so simple when we try to remember a lost civilization.
He followed the excavations with an amateur's keen interest, seeing in the sand a mirror for the soul.
Although he used ancient Greek mythology to characterize his theories, Egypt was the bedrock.
He never visited archaeological sites farther from Vienna than Athens and Rome.
Egypt confronted him as he sat at his desk, face to face with the gods.
The baboon of Thoth, god of wisdom, writing, and record-keeping, sat closest to his hand.
Freud knew that what is buried is not gone. It waits.
Just as the repressed memory returns to haunt the patient, the suppressed history returns to haunt the civilization. We call them lost civilizations, but perhaps we are the ones who are lost.
We struggle to remember, building monuments and museums, yet we often forget the human cost.
Anxiety concentrates around these memories, lost but not forgotten, vibrating in the archives of the world.
Waiting for the trigger, a movement, a word, a crisis, to bring them back to the surface.
The Sphinx poses a riddle not just to Oedipus, but to all of us. Who are we, and where do we come from?
He showed us that the individual mind and the collective culture mirror each other in their capacity to hide the truth.
To heal, we must be willing to dig, to disturb the dust, and to look the gods in the face.
Even when the face that looks back is painful, like the legacy of slavery, or uncomfortable, like the appropriation of empire.
Memory is not a static record, but a dynamic reconstruction, built and rebuilt every day. We can choose to build casinos of distraction, or we can choose to build museums of truth.
The work is never finished. The sands are always shifting.
From the consulting rooms in Vienna to the streets of America, the thread remains unbroken.
And there, in the center of it all, sits the baboon of Thoth.
Waiting for the stroke of a hand, a gesture of connection across the millennia.
Freud's questions remain our questions. His ghosts are our ghosts.
Nothing is ever truly lost. It is only waiting to be found. In the end, we are all archaeologists, digging through the strata of our lives,
searching for the fragments that make us whole.
Dust to dust, memory to memory. Page is open. The excavation continues. In the twilight of 1938, a refugee flees the rising darkness of Nazi-occupied Vienna. Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis, surrounds himself with silent watchers, gods. It stands only 8 inches high, a stoic survivor purchased from a Viennese dealer, now resting miles from home. Upon its head rests a heavy burden of cosmic significance, the full moon cradled within its crescent.
Yet, this artifact carries the scars of a complex history. Its base is circular, unlike the
We are transported back 2,000 years to a time when Egypt was the jewel of the Roman Empire, and the gods of the Nile were...
The rigid styles of the pharaohs blend with the naturalism of the classical world, creating a hybrid deity for a changing empire.
These portable idols were destined to travel, carried across the Mediterranean to domestic shrines, just as Freud's
But before it was a Roman ornament, this creature was Thoth, the ancient Egyptian lord of wisdom, the measurer.
The Egyptians watched the Hamadryas baboon, noting its intelligence and its habit of chattering at the rising sun.
To the ancient mind, the cycles of the moon were the original calendar, and Thoth was the divine reckoner.
Yet Thoth was a god of many faces. He was not only the heavy-bodied baboon, but also the elegant ibis. It was this connection to the pen that cemented Thoth's greatest power. He was the scribe of in a civilization obsessed with permanence, Thoth held the keys to cultural memory, recording the decisions that would echo through eternity.
His pen was most feared in the underworld, within the Hall of Maat, where the souls of the dead faced their final reckoning. Here, the heart of the deceased was weighed against the feather of truth, a test of moral purity that determined existence or oblivion.
Thoth stood ready, not to judge, but to record, his reed brush hovering over the papyrus, waiting to seal the fate of the soul forever.
Whatever the outcome, once Thoth wrote it down, it became absolute truth, reality woven into the fabric of the cosmos. His accounting extended to the living as well. Upon the sacred Pursa tree, Thoth inscribed the years allotted to a king's reign.
Every year, every victory, every festival was granted by the pen of the scribe god.
These temples were more than stone houses for gods. They were the bureaucratic engines of the Egyptian state.
In a land of 2 million souls, the power to read and write was a fortress guarded by the few. To be a scribe was to step out of the mud and into the shade, to wield authority over the unlettered masses.
This privilege was not given. It was forged in the rigorous discipline of the scribal schools attached to the great temples.
Here, young hands learned to manipulate the reed brush, the palette, and the twin cakes of ink, black for the text, red for the headings.
They copied ancient maxims endlessly, texts that extolled the beauty of their future profession above all other labors on earth.
The promise was clear: master the script, and you may one day stand before the king, exempt from the heavy labor that breaks the bodies of other men.
The scribe's kit, the palette, the water pot, the reeds, became the very symbol of Thoth himself.
In art, Thoth is rarely seen without these tools, holding the power of creation in his hands, ready to serve the sun god Re.
Such scenes were essential for the elite, like the priestess Nestaneptasheru, who took the Greenfield papyrus into her tomb to guide her through the afterlife.
To the Egyptians, the gods were not flesh and blood. but beings of shimmering metal and multicolored light.
Their hair was not hair, but lapis lazuli, the deep blue stone that mirrored the heavens, connecting their physical forms to the infinite sky. How does one depict the impossible? The Egyptians used the natural world, falcons, bulls. These composite forms were not literal descriptions, but artistic codes, a way to visualize the
For Thoth, the baboon form served a different purpose than the ibis. It was the heavy, grounded presence.
While the great statues guarded the temples, smaller figures allowed the common people to hold a piece of that wisdom in their hands.
But devotion took a darker turn in the late period, as millions of animals were bred, sacrificed, and...
At Hermopolis, the city of Thoth, archaeologists uncovered a city of the dead, not for humans, but for the sacred animals of the scribe god.
This was piety on an industrial scale, a desperate attempt to purchase favor from the gods as the world outside the temples began to fracture.
The stability of the pharaonic age was crumbling. New empires, Assyrian, Greek, Roman.
With the lineage of kings disrupted, the people looked to the temples for continuity. The priests became the guardians of Egypt's soul, and Thoth, the scribe, became the symbol of this resistance, a potent mix of writing and secret wisdom that only the initiated could access.
As foreign languages filled the streets of Alexandria and Memphis, the ancient scripts became a code.
The temples transformed into time capsules, preserving the rites of the ancestors while the world around them marched toward a new era. It was a strategy that succeeded. Long after the last pharaoh fell, the figure of Thoth endured.
Just as the sands of Egypt preserved the secrets of the pharaohs, the unconscious mind preserved the primitive instincts of
nonsense. To fuel this metaphor, Freud became an obsessive collector. His consulting room in Vienna was not just...
Many of these treasures, including the marble baboon, came from a specific source, the shop of Robert Lustig.
In Lustig's shop, the ancient world was for sale, a place where the debris of fallen empires was cleaned.
The ancient damage was smoothed away, the broken paws reshaped, a restoration that mirrors Freud's own.
In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the flow of history was unidirectional. From the sands of... Unlike today, there were few restrictions. The colonial powers felt entitled to the treasures of the lands they dominated.
Even the Museum of Egyptian Antiquities in Cairo was complicit, opening a sale room in 1902, where duplicate or less.
For a price, one could purchase a genuine piece of eternity, complete with a government license. These objects found new homes far from the Nile. On Freud's desk, they were arranged not haphazardly.
Beside the baboon, Freud often placed Imhotep, the Egyptian vizier who was deified as a god of healing and wisdom. Imhotep was the first architect to build in stone, creating the step pyramid. Freud, too, was...
Also present was Athena, the Greek goddess of wisdom and war, she who sprang fully formed from the head. Thoth, Imhotep, Athena, a trinity of wisdom from different cultures, all converging on this one desk to oversee the birth of a new science. The Egyptians called their script Medu Neta, the words of the gods. To write a thing, this power was dangerous. Thus, Thoth was the guardian of the divine order.
And the scribes knew their worth. Texts like the Satire of the Trades mocked every other profession to elevate the man with the pen.
The potter is under the earth, though he is among the living, the texts sneered, describing the physical toll of manual labor.
The washerman's day is going up, his night is coming down, endlessly scrubbing the linens of others in water filled with biting insects. But the scribe? He directs the work of others. There is no profession without a boss, except for the scribe. He is the boss.
These texts were not just propaganda. They were the copybooks for students, drilling the lesson of superiority.
Escape was not free. The Nazis demanded a fortune to allow the Jews to leave, levying a tax on the very lives they sought to destroy. They traveled across a continent on the brink of war, crossing the Channel to the safety of England, carrying the memory of Vienna to a new home. The baboon had survived the fall of Egypt, the chisel of the Roman sculptor, the trade routes. In the quiet of the London suburbs, the lunar disc on the baboon's head served as a reminder of the sick.
Thoth was the god of equilibrium. He balanced the scales. Perhaps Freud looked to him to balance.
In Egyptian belief, these statues were not decorations. They were vessels for the Ka, the spirit.
As Freud approached his own death in September 1939, the baboon...
Freud died, but his writings remained. Like the scribes of old, he had ensured his immortality through ink and paper.
Today, the house is a museum. Visitors walk quietly past the desk, gazing at the... Few notice the reworked paws or the circular Roman base. They see only the enigma, the Egyptian god in the Victorian study.
The statue bridges the gap between the magical thinking of the ancients and the scientific inquiry of the moderns, proving they are not so different.
Thoth, the scribe, the reckoner, remains. He watched the pyramids rise. For as long as humanity seeks to understand itself, to write down its fears and its laws.
The marble baboon is more than stone. It is a testament to the enduring human need for wisdom in a chaotic world.
To understand the true nature of Freud's baboon, we must look beneath the cairn itself.
Egypt was a land of sandstone and granite. This marble was likely quarried in the mountains of Italy or the East.
This dates the object to the Roman period, between the 1st century BC and the 3rd century AD.
The betrayal is in the base. Egyptian statues traditionally sit on rectangular plinths.
Experts suspect a second hand touched this stone long after the Romans. The paws and tail suggest a modern
Dealers like Robert Lustig knew that a complete statue sold better than a fragment. The history of the object was literally reshaped to fit the desire of the collector.
Yet, it remains purely Egyptian. To the Egyptian priests, this dawn chorus was not animal noise, but prayer. The baboons...
Thoth adopted this form to represent the heavy, settled wisdom of the moon, contrasting with the flighty, sharp precision of the ibis. The complex crown on the statue, the full moon resting in the crescent, is a direct hieroglyph for the lunar cycle.
While the baboon sat in judgment, the ibis was the active scribe. Its beak, curved like a reed pen.
By the late period, the demand for Thoth's favor was so great that temples began breeding these animals by the...
Pilgrims bought these mummified animals to leave as votive offerings, prayers made flesh, wrapped in linen and stacked in the dark. Near the great temple of Thoth, archaeologists found the result. Underground galleries packed with jars.
Modern scans reveal the truth inside the bundles. Some contain a whole bird, others just a few feathers or a bone.
Baboons were harder to breed and more expensive to keep. Their mummies are rarer, reserved for the wealthy or the temple elite.
This explosion of animal cults occurred as the Egyptian state weakened. People turned away from distant pharaohs.
In this chaos, the scribe remained a figure of stability. He could read the ancient spells, he could navigate the bureaucracy, he could cheat death.
Writing was not just communication, it was binding. To erase a name was to kill a soul.
The ultimate expression of this power was the Book of the Dead, a collection of spells that served as a passport for the...
The priestess Nestanebtasharu took no chances. Her papyrus was over 37 meters long.
On her papyrus, we see the gods as the Egyptians imagined them, not dull stone.
The animal heads, the falcon, the jackal, the ibis, were not literal. They were artistic shorthand.
The tripartite wig worn by the gods was colored blue to signify their connection to the sky and the primeval waters of creation.
Ancient texts speak of gods emanating multicolored sunlight, a concept difficult to capture in ink.
Thoth stood between these terrifying cosmic forces and humanity. He translated the will of the gods into the language of men.
This role of the mediator fascinated Freud. The psychoanalyst, like the scribe, translates the chaos.
Freud wrote, "Saxa loquuntur," the stones speak. He believed that artifacts were...
His desk was his dig site, a carefully arranged landscape where the ancient world informed the modern cure.
Long after the temples closed and the hieroglyphs were forgotten, Thoth survived in the Western imagination as Hermes.
The appeal is timeless. In a world of uncertainty, we crave the scribe who knows the answers.
For Freud, dying in exile, the baboon was perhaps a comfort, a reminder that wisdom survives the collapse of empires.
The blank eyes of the marble statue have seen the Roman chisel, the Victorian salon, and the birth of psychoanalysis. From the Nile to the Thames, the journey of this object traces the arc of civilization itself.
It sits there still, in Maresfield Gardens, a silent witness to the history of the human mind. An ancient scribe's prayer asks, "Make me a scribe that I may be learned, that I may interpret the words of the gods."
In the end, ink is more durable than stone. The statues may break, but the words... Freud understood this. His library, his writings, his collection, they were his bid for immortality, his own Book of the Dead.
As night falls over North London, the moon rises once again, the celestial crown of the baboon, watching over the sleeping city.
We leave it where Freud left it, at the right hand of the desk, the position of the trusted advisor.
The young Hispanic man is gone. The empire is gone. The gods remain.